This video shows equipment that runs at 240 volts UK voltage. Please be very careful and follow along at your own risk. Okay, let's get started. So those of you in the Christmas lights community will know that in the antique ones in particular, you'll find that majority of them are not working. Now, how can we go about fixing this? Well, I had several ideas about trying to do this, and like putting a hole in the bottom, feeding a light through, but I was looking at how can I actually make that a bit more realistic. So I was thinking about how can we must be able to cut the top open with a glass cutter, a glass cutting arbour. So I looked into that, and I've tried several other small milk glass or large milk glass ones like these, and I found with a great deal of success, with some cheaply available components, you can actually fix them. Now I'm going to demonstrate in this video exactly how you do that, but it does mean cutting the glass. Now, I can't offer any warranties or guarantees when you cut the glass that the whole thing just doesn't break, but the bits and pieces you need are, for instance, we have here a grommet. That's I think that's a 12mm grommet, and I think the inner diameter of that is somewhere around about 9.5mm, and you can wedge that in here once the glass is cut using one of these, which is a freely available 24 volt 4 watt filament glass bulb. Now these are freely available because 24 volts is what's used on trucks, and 24 volts 4 watts is either the side lamps, screw-in side lamps, or the dashboard illumination on some older trucks. Now these are exactly what you require, because I calculated that most of these are somewhere in the region of 20 volts 3 watts. So for 20 volts 3 watts, and I calculated down from 24 volts down to 20 volts, and I put it on the power supply, which I have here, and I'm just going to connect this up, and I'm going to light it up. So we have 20 volts, let's adjust 20 volts on the power supply. So we've now got 20 volts on the power supply at about 150 milliamps. So 20 volts and 150 milliamps is 3 watts, which is exactly what these are. So we can replace these directly into here. Well, how do you do that? Obviously I'm now going to show you. So things are probably going to get a little bit noisy, because you're going to need a glass cutter, and the ones I have are the arbour style glass cutters, which are again something that's freely available on eBay. But one thing you want to check, dependent on the size of these old milk glass, you want to check that they go over. Now a 12mm one will not fit, so I do have another one here, which is 13 millimeters. So by my calculations this should go, yeah, it goes nice and evenly over the top, and in theory we should be able to cut that top fairly easily. Now this does get messy, and again I can't guarantee that the glass will not break or shatter. The thing to do is to take it easy, do it slowly, and not put too much speed on the drill, because it will snatch and it will snap it out of your hand and it's likely to break it. So let's have a go. So this is going to get a bit noisy, so I'll put that arbour cutter in the drill. Now you may find your arms start to ache, mine definitely has. But again, slowly, progressively, make sure the drill is on the, if you have a selection on your drill, on the top, make sure that that is on the lowest speed, because you don't want to go at this hammer and tongs, because otherwise you will break it. Now you can see, maybe you can't, but this now you can feel that this is starting to bite fairly deep down into the case, into the glass. Now we need to slow down just a little bit here, and we need to release some of the pressure we're putting on it so it doesn't snap and break. So right, we're completely through. So empty out all the residues inside there, because there will be quite a lot. Now if you pull out what's inside the arbour, we have left a lamp piece. Now this is the one that's obviously, when it was manufactured, was directly fitted on the top of the glass pip. Now what we want to do is very carefully clean up all this glass, because the glass will get everywhere and it will get into things and it will get into your fingers. So I'll just get the vacuum cleaner, loud noise coming up. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is, looking at this, you'll see there's still obviously the glass inside the MES fitting. So what we need to do, we need to get this glass out of the MES fitting. Now again, you need to be really careful when doing this, because there will be bits of glass everywhere and you can quite easily cut yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crush this slightly in a pair of pliers, and the glass in theory will shatter, and I should be able to pull out the insides of this, and we should be able to get everything out of there. So let me grab my pair of pliers. So now gently squeeze. And you can see already small pieces of glass coming out. Again, just a gentle squeeze. Don't go at this hammer and tongs, because we want the MES fitting still. We don't want it to lose its shape. It will get a little bit out of shape, obviously, but what we're aiming for, just tap that gently, is to get all the glass out from underneath, out from inside. Now, what we're also going to need to do, I'll just grab my soldering iron and the pip on the bottom here. We are going to need to make sure that we pull out. Actually, no, we can't. So no. So we're going to need to crush the centre portion of that as well. Now again, be careful, because that can go, glass can go everywhere. So now you may be able to see in the centre there you have two connections, one for the base and one for the side. Now we want to move the one from the side out of there, so we need to look at which one is which. Now this one, let's focus, so this one here is the one that's on the side. Now we want to be able to, I think we could probably just pull that off, but it's probably better to desolder that. So let's desolder that. Instantly, straight off, which is exactly what we want. So you can see now in the bottom of that bulb, all that's left is a central connection. Now what we want to do with that central connection is to ensure that we can connect that to the bottom of our 24 volt bulb. So let's do that now. So let me just get my small wire cutters. Now we want to trim this carefully. We don't want to go too far. We probably want about 4, maybe 5 millimeters off that. So now if we look at that, you can see that we have a nice small wire end on there, which will solder directly to the pip of the bottom of the other bulb. So first things first, let's make sure we tin that wire. And that wire is tinned. You now want to be able to, yeah, that's what I thought. So before we do anything else, let's just have a quick clean up here. So loud noise coming up. So we now want to be able to, let me get my stronger specs, I can't quite see what I'm doing. Those of us of a certain age will know exactly what I'm talking about. So let's just re-tin that cable on the bottom there, that wire. Now, you're not going to be able to see this particularly well. I'm going to melt the solder on the bottom of that bulb, and I'm going to feed the wire in from the bottom. So now we can see, I'll just show you what I've done. So we can now see at the bottom of the truck bulb is now, pip is now soldered to the pip of the original. Okay, so these like this are obviously, hold on, let's focus. Come on, let's focus. So this is not very strong like it is. We don't want that obviously wobbling about inside the bulb, inside the milk glass bulb when we insert it. So what we're going to do, I already have pre-cut a piece of 20 gauge wire, tin copper wire, which is stiff enough to be able to hold those bulbs together. So what we now want to do is we want to take our soldering iron, and we want to tin the old MES holder where it was soldered on before, and we want to tin our wire, and careful not to burn your fingers. And now we want to solder that directly onto the side of the old MES. Like so. Now we trim that piece of cable, piece of wire cutters, and we now solder this directly to the side of our truck bulb. Fortunately there's another, let me get that in shot. I'm going to solder that directly to the side of that bulb, right on the other solder pit. Let's just touch that in. So now you can see we have the two soldered together and it's nice and robust. So that's going to stay nice and firm, and it's not going to wiggle about inside the bulb, inside the milk glass bulb. Now, what we need to do is place our rubber grommet just over the top of the old glass, of the old MES fitting. Now, what I would recommend is that we just dab that with a little bit of super glue just to hold it in place. So now we have that in position, and while they're waiting for that super glue to dry, let's just test it on the power supply to see if our connections are successful. Yes, most definitely. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is to insert this inside the glass bulb, the milk glass section. Now, what we're going to need to do, because this is quite a challenge to get in and out, so what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to warm it with a heat gun, so we get the rubber nice and flexible. That way it will insert into the milk glass bulb fairly easily. So get it nice and warm. This will also help the super glue to set. So I've got the heat gun set to around 140 degrees C. This should be enough to make the rubber pliable without burning it. So rubber's nice and pliable now, so we insert that in and around that edge, pressing it into there carefully, pushing it in, pushing it in, pushing it in gently, and just give it a little twist, and there we are, the bulb is inserted. So now our complete assembly is inserted inside the milk glass bulb. So if we now give that a test, you can see we now have a nice glowing milk glass bulb. And that is how you fix your milk glass bulbs. Okay, some additional. You may find it advantageous to glue where the rubber meets the glass, because obviously this is still loose inside. So if we put a small dot focus, thank you. So if we put a small dot of super glue just around the edge, so now we can see there's 3 small dots of super glue right round that edge, just to hold it in place. Now I'll add another additional to this. I'll find one of my other sets of lights that has what I've already done this to, and I will show you the set that they plug into on the bench, so you can see them working in real light strings. And again, don't forget, this is only for the 20 volt 3 watt type with the MES fitting. Okay, so here we have one of my sets of the olive cone, traditional olive cone Christmas tree lights. Now let's take one of these out, and we shall put in our nicely newly freshly repaired milk glass one. So this is done through an isolation transformer and a dimmer. So we switch on and we bring up the dimmer, and as you can see, this is now looking perfect, absolutely perfect, in amongst all my others. Now I do have another one here, a large globe style one, which I've also done a replacement bulb with. So we'll screw that in. And again, as you can see, we have a rather wonderful looking set of bulbs, which would have been virtually indistinguishable from the original. So these are all now working just as they would have been intended to. what I wanted to do, the initial outset of this, was replace them with LEDs, but I decided yes, there are some pretty good LEDs, and they do a pretty good job of colour rendering, but these would take a lot of work to get them to work with these incandescent sets, so I just opted for what I thought was the best for these old sets, which is to use them as they were intended, which was with incandescent bulbs. Now, again, like I said, the idea is to use cheap components that are freely available, all the tools that you would normally have in a standard workshop to fix these things up, and so you can be able to use them once more as they were intended on the Christmas tree. Once again, I want to say thank you for watching, and I shall put a link for each of the things that I've purchased from eBay and various other places to obtain these spare parts so you can fix your own. This is an instructional video, and I might add, can I also say that you will do this always at your own risk. There is a danger of glass shattering. I cannot offer any guarantees or warranties that the glass will not shatter. There are also, obviously, to make sure that you are safe, use an electrical isolation transformer to ensure that you eliminate as many risks as possible, and to ensure that you don't damage your bulbs. I would always ensure that you use yourself a nice dimmer. Plug-in dimmers are freely available pretty much anyway. Anyway, once again, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy your newly repaired bulbs.